So on Wednesday, we'll be hosting Furkan Durgan's parents, along with various other attorneys from the National Lawyers Guild and the Center for Constitutional Rights. Furkan Durgan was a 19-year-old high school student at the time, a U.S. citizen living in Turkey, and was brutally killed, shot at point blank after he was beaten unconscious while he was on the Mavi Marmara on his way to send aid to Gaza. And this was on Memorial Day of 2010. This was May 31st, 2010. And so we're here to really build a movement that wants to hold the Israeli government accountable and even the American Department of Justice accountable for their own citizen. There has been no attempt to prosecute the Israeli authorities and the Israeli soldiers who had killed Furkan Durgan in cold blood, and it was caught on TV. And so the parents are mobilizing through various communities and meeting with the Department of Justice to try to get some accountability and some type of closure to the brutal murder of their son.
Could you give a little background about why this boat was going to Gaza in the first place?
Beginning in January of 2008, the Israeli government had imposed an even more strict closure on the Gaza Strip. There had already been a siege on the Gaza Strip, but after Hamas had won the elections and was not welcomed to be the ruling party in Palestine, the Gaza Strip was besieged and completely cut off from the rest of the world. At the end of 2008, 2 days after Christmas 2008, December 27th of 2008, after the entire population of the Gaza Strip was basically starved, and it was later found out that approximately over 40 or 50% of children, Palestinian children living in the Gaza Strip, were malnourished. The Israeli government had promised only a few weeks earlier a Shoah, a bigger Holocaust, and had fulfilled that promise, massacring Palestinians in the Gaza Strip while they were imprisoned, surrounded on all sides, bombed them for 22 days straight, killed over 1,400 Palestinians in that 22-day period, without, of course, any punishment, without any ramifications. Even after that war, the Gaza Strip remained besieged. No medical supplies, no food supplies were allowed to enter or to be brought in by the Palestinians. Palestinians living in the Gaza Strip were not allowed to leave. And so there was born this movement in outrage and in solidarity with the Palestinians living in the Gaza Strip to bring supplies, physically break the siege that's imposed on Gaza, and bring in medical, food, and humanitarian supplies into the Gaza Strip in the hope that the international community and their governments would follow thereafter. And so Furkan Durgan was on the Mavi Marmara, one of the largest efforts, one of the largest ships to have been sent out to Gaza to break that siege, when he was killed along with 9 other people on the Mavi Marmara when the ship was stormed by Israeli military.
After the Mavi Marmara and the bad publicity Israel received, there was talk that conditions had been eased.
So this talk of easing the conditions is a matter of opening the crossing, I think an extra day or two. I believe at this point right now, the Rafah crossing is open only approximately 4 days in each month. I don't know if that's the accurate number. There's still, the UN agencies, countless NGOs still say that there is widespread malnourishment. The supplies that are coming in are still very meager. It's a matter of a few trucks to feed millions of Palestinians, the entire Gaza Strip, that are coming in each month. And on top of that, those trucks are vetted to see if they are acceptable food products. For example, whether macaroni is going to be allowed in, what types of medical supplies are going to be allowed in. So there has been no easing of the siege on the Gaza Strip since the Mavi Marmara attack. I do want to say this, however, what has happened is that there has been an international movement mobilized by Israeli authorities and their Zionist counterparts in various think tanks across the U.S. to manipulate and change international humanitarian law so that there will be no way to hold Israeli authorities accountable for both the attack on the Mavi Marmara, for the war, the massacre that they launched under the rubric, the name of Operation Cast Lead, and the siege, which is otherwise illegal under every article of soft and firm international law. And so our other concern is that the existence, the tactics, the warmongering of the Israeli state is not only affecting and murdering Palestinians and their supporters, as we saw in the Mavi Marmara, but is really reshaping international law and humanitarian law for the rest of us, and we're all going to be subject to it.
Final question. Now that things have changed in Egypt to some extent, do you think there's going to be a big campaign to try to open the Rafah border?
I've got to tell you, yesterday I saw the most amazing thing. 2 million people celebrating in Tahrir Square, 2 million people, all of them in unison chanting, Al-Quds, Raihin, Shuhada bil-Malayin. To Jerusalem we're going, martyrs by the millions. So what's very clear from the Egyptian liberation movement, from this new movement, pro-democracy movement in Egypt and in Tunisia on the night of Egypt's victory of bringing down the Mubarak presidency, Tunisians were in the street chanting the chant that had spread throughout the Arab world, but changing it to Shab yurid tahrir Palestine, the people want the freedom of Palestine. Palestine is an inextricable part of the Arab world. There is something called an Arab people. They are tangible. There is something called an Arab world. Israel has effectively divided that Arab world from itself, not only by physically imposing itself on Palestinian land, but also by embroiling itself in the internal politics of each of the Arab countries, as we saw their involvement with the Maronite population in Lebanon, with the southern Sudanese militias in Sudan, with the other minorities in the Arab countries, to kind of divide and conquer the Arab world, to create microstates that can't challenge the Israeli occupation. What we're seeing now is that this is failing, and the Arab people en masse, and even the minorities living in the Arab world en masse, are calling for the liberation of Palestine. And their agenda is not only internal policy, but also foreign policy. It's not only a domestic agenda, it's a foreign agenda. Just what? Okay. Oh, okay. So what I'm trying to say is people understand, whether it's in Egypt or Tunisia or in Bahrain, that the proxy colonialism under which they have lived has been supporting Israel, and they also make the connections between the Palestinian struggle for liberation and their own struggle for liberation. And until Palestine is free, the people of the Arab world will not rest, and they will continue to feel that sense of solidarity directly and indirectly with their brothers and sisters in Palestine. Thanks, Stanley.